Elaine Bennis, greatest woman lead character ever in a sitcom. Unless you want to argue for like another character that Julie Louis-Dreyfus has played in another sitcom.
I'm in the tank for Cheers. Shelley Long's Diane.
What's incredible about Elaine is that the plot doesn't have to hinge on a will they, won't they.
Hello and welcome to Expected Own Goals. San Diego, wave goodbye to every player they've ever loved. I am your host, Eric Morgan.
I'm Evan Davis. Yeah, the San Diego Wave is going to be our featured team of the week based on some of the things that have happened in the last 7 days with that roster. We got a few other bits and bobs, some signings, another major departure from another team to discuss. But the first order of business is that we have a little bit of news on the labor front. NWSL Players Association Executive Director Meghann Burke was on our friends Hey Spirits show today to talk a little bit about what's going on with the grievance process that the union has initiated, both on the revocation of Trinity Rodman's contract with the Washington Spirit and also around the high impact player rule, which unfortunately is now officially known on Wikipedia as the Rodman rule. So, like, Wikipedia editor, somebody get on that. Get that out of there. Reject it. But basically what it boils down to, the news that we got is that grievance committee for the Rodman grievance is that process probably won't resolve for, according to Burke, another month or two. And that doesn't mean that the issue will be resolved. It just will mean that the committee, i.e., the rep from the league and the rep from the union getting together and trying to hash it out, that process won't wrap up for another month or two. And if they don't see eye to eye and can't come to an agreement, then it'll go to arbitration, which will then take another very long time to sort through. So we're not out of the woods yet. And what Rodman chooses to do in the interim is still very, very unclear. If she ends up signing with one of the 4 teams in Europe that she can sign with in the next couple of weeks, then it won't be the Rodman rule and it won't have anything to do with Trinity anymore. But the process will still have to work itself out because, as Burke has said many times, this is bigger than Trinity Rodman, which hopefully is clear to everybody now. And the other piece is actually a really helpful for me, not being a lawyer and not reading contracts on the regular, clarification about what is really in dispute over the high impact player rule. When we went through it before the holidays, we made sort of an offhanded comment about how a high impact player is a roster classification. You even said, like, I don't see how you wouldn't see it that way. And Burke is arguing, in fact, that it is not a roster classification. And she offered an explanation as to what she means by that. As she put it, there are defined terms and there are not defined terms in the CBA, which means that there are certain terms that have very, very specific sort of definitions about like what they are, how you interpret them, and other terms that don't have that attached to them. And according to Burke, you should, quote, use common sense in how you define them. And so, according to Burke and the union, a roster classification involves where you place players in categories of availability to the roster, whether that has to do with injury leave, family leave, loans, whether you're active, non-roster invites, non-roster trial players, et cetera, and so forth. Your availability to be rostered by an NWSL club. But because high impact player is a definition pertaining to salary compensation, that means that it is now in the realm of mandatory subject of bargaining, which means the union has to be at the table when you try to get it on the books, which she says they were not. They were not, in fact, consulted as the league wants to claim. And so that's really what's at issue right now. If it is a simple roster classification, as the league wants to say, the league says it has unilateral discretion. And if it is, in fact, an area of compensation, then the league fucked up and they need to now involve the union to hash out this rule. I don't think that maybe that is quite as clear-cut as Burke wants to hope that it is, but it does follow common sense. Like, it is a rule-defining player compensation. Therefore, it is a mandatory subject of bargaining. End of story.
It's such a mess. I just, like, I am so in awe at this point, and I have been the whole time, but I am so in awe of like how royally stupid this whole situation is. And just like how a simple veto has put the future of the biggest star in this league in doubt, and how there's been no urgency toward resolution.
Yeah, and on the urgency point, Burke even says a couple of times in the episode that things are moving more slowly than she would like. I think it should be made clear that if Rodman were to accept the terms of a high-impact player compliant, quote-unquote, contract in the next few weeks, that doesn't necessarily preclude the union winning both of these grievances and for the contract to have to be renegotiated under new terms. So in the short term, it's not as though the league's got the union dead to rights on that particular issue. And I think in the long term, the union isn't super worried about how this is going to affect Rodman specifically, because this has much wider implications than just Rodman.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, like, if the Rodman situation doesn't go the way that the union or that like Spirit fans or probably even Rodman wants it to go, it is still a fight worth winning and probably winnable for the union down the road. That's going to help a lot of other players in future off seasons.
True.
So you're right. It's messy. It's complex. It's slow, and it's not going away. And with any luck, at least some part of it we might have clarity on in the next few weeks, but the European transfer window closes in 2 weeks. So with respect to where Rodman is playing come middle of March, hold on to your butts, kids.
Yeah, I mean, like, your read right now is probably the same as mine, which is she's going to be in Washington.
That's clearly what she ultimately wants, which is why it's why we haven't heard news about her going to Arsenal or Chelsea or Lyon.
Let's move on and talk about the actual movement as opposed to stalemates.
Let's quickly get the smaller ones out of the way.
Sure.
Denise O'Sullivan being transferred to Liverpool.
Yeah, for $400K, making Sam Coffey look like a relative bargain.
I mean, $400K for a 32-year-old central midfielder with a year left on her deal. That is incredible business by the Courage.
Yeah, you gotta throw one in the direction of Carrie Bowley for once.
And now we should also say that, I mean, the $400K price, that's reported by the BBC. It's not been confirmed, but that, I mean, feels relatively solid kinds of reporting.
Yep.
And also, didn't she score a goal at the weekend?
That is correct, but in the FA Cup.
Yeah, but still, you're already hitting pay dirt with your new signing. I mean, this is a big deal for Liverpool. It is a big deal
for Liverpool. It also, I would not describe it as one of those moves that sort of is an indicator of a real commitment to try to stay up in the WSL, other than that they are trying to stay up in the WSL, which Liverpool shouldn't have trouble doing, and yet
all you need to do to stay up in the WSL is to
not be last.
But you know, to be at the very worst competitive / respectable against non-top 4 sides. O'Sullivan allows you to do that.
Correct.
You know, and then as far as the Courage are concerned, I know this probably is a very emotional time for Courage fans because O'Sullivan is the North Carolina Courage on the field in a great many respects, but it's no accident that Riley Jackson and Shinomi Koyama are here.
Yeah.
And that O'Sullivan stuck around for a couple extra years to basically train her replacements. And I think she's done a pretty good job. And now the Courage have 2 central midfielders under the age of 21, one of whom is now in the mix for the U.S. women's national team and had a great season last year. Like, I think the Courage are going to be fine. I saw somebody on social media just freak out being like, the Courage won't be competitive in 2026. This is the end. I'm
not
like,
true.
Chill the fuck out, bro. Riley Jackson is here. It'll be fine, at least in that area of the pitch. We could maybe talk about the state of the Courage's roster more broadly, but it's still early.
Yeah, and between Denise O'Sullivan and Jaden Shaw, they have a nice little kitty available to them to go spend money on the market. Whether they do or not, that's a different question, but they have money.
Yeah.
And should they choose to spend it, they're in an interesting position. Again, this is one of the teams that, like, really were unfortunate to miss the playoffs. I think that this is a team that's in a really good position to be competitive. They have some of the most exciting young talent in the entire league. All right. Yeah. Evan, you want to keep going?
Well, just one final thing to tag that with. Like, if Felly Rout can bounce back a little bit, you have a back line that consists of players like Ryan Williams, Natalie Jacobs, Macy Bell. Solid. You got Kaylin Sheridan in goal. Solid. Riley Jackson and Naomi in the engine room. Solid. You have Manaka up top and Ashley Sánchez underneath her. Solid. Like, there's no reason to think, especially in an 8-team playoff field with 2 expansion teams coming in 2026, there's no reason to think that this team won't be competitive in 2026.
Yeah, I agree.
I wanted to highlight 3 smaller, quote-unquote, signings as a way to sort of talk about how we think of evaluation of players who don't have NWSL experience and the tools that we have available to us to do that. The first one, Macey Hodge, not much to say there. $83,000 and 2 international roster slots over the next 2 years to move from Angel City to Racing Louisville. Clean, easy, a very Racing Louisville kind of signing. You commented last week around the Ari Borges signing that, like, Hodge and Borges will be 2 grafters who will probably get a lot of yellow cards. Well, Hodge is now out of that equation. And so,
yes, Louisville replaced Ari Borges with Macey Hodge.
Yeah,
has like
and
for
Angel
like
City did the reverse.
Yeah.
So that feels like a very Racing Louisville signing, and I'm sure she'll do quite well there playing next to Taylor Flint. The 2 players I wanted to drill down into a little bit are Melissa Kössler, a striker from Hoffenheim, signing with the Denver Summit for 2 years. There is excitement around her and what she might be able to accomplish in Denver. And that might not be wrong, but I think that it's worth at least highlighting how she has played and when and for how much she has played over the past 12 months against strong teams in the Frauen Bundesliga, of which there are very few. Mm-hmm. And even though it's quite a small sample, and if you want to throw that asterisk on these numbers, you absolutely can. But when you measure up her performance against Bayern Munich, Wolfsburg, if you want to, Eintracht Frankfurt as well, you measure up her performance against those teams over the last 12 months against what your average everyday NWSL striker does in the NWSL. At best, you can say she's going to be like a league average everyday striker. Mm-hmm. That might be fine, and especially for an expansion team that is looking for goal scorers, but not necessarily expecting to, like, make the playoffs in your first year. That might be good enough. But I think it's interesting that Kössler, who's 26 years old, it's not like she's a young prospect. I don't get the impression that Bayern or Wolfsburg have ever sniffed around her to potentially poach her from Hoffenheim. And she's not really spent a lot of time in the German senior setup either. So, the Germany women's national team doesn't necessarily see her as one of the more elite attacking talents in the Frauen Bundesliga either. Mm-hmm. That I think this is at best a push signing. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a bust, but the raw numbers that she puts up, I think really need to be heavily contextualized just because of the level of the competition that she has faced.
She does decent work in terms of like on-ball take-ons, and she seems to be really active. So those are probably two good signs for a player coming into an expansion team where like they may be responsible for a fair amount of creation. So I think that there's plenty of reason to think that they have signed somebody who will not be like a black hole at striker, but who knows? Yeah, I'm sort of with you. Like I would say that I am lukewarm on this signing, and you know, you got a player at the right age, and if you feel like you understand how to deploy them in a way they have yet to be deployed, potentially an interesting signing. But this isn't Rachel Kundananji. This isn't Rose Kouassi. This isn't a player that I expect to totally set the league alight.
Yeah, it's a high variance signing. The other part about the raw performance data is that she played a lot of sub minutes against strong teams over the last 12 months. So I've gone and adjusted those numbers for sub effects. Now, there may be some fitness stuff, like she dealt with some injuries, and a lot of times, like when Hoffenheim played Bayern, she was like coming out of an injury spell. So maybe coming off the bench shouldn't be weighted too heavily, but I don't know. I mean, I think it's a gray area, I think, based on the information that I have for the reasons that she subbed against stronger teams. So, you know, just it's really fun to look at the percentile graphics like on a player's FBref landing page. But if they're coming out of Europe, like
grain of salt,
they just don't mean much. Like you have to drill down, and you know, if you want to say small sample size skew, okay, fine, but you still need to try and strip out some noise there. The other player is Maja Lardner, another striker, college signing out of Georgetown, going to be going into her age 23 season, signed with Racing Louisville. We've been excited over the last week or so about Paul Harvey's college prospect dashboard tool. It's a processing and an evaluation of data you get from Y-Scout on a player's college season and ranking them relative to each other, specifically with the emphasis of which players might actually level up into being good NWSL pros. And if you looked at Maja Lardner's player card on the CPD, you'd see a score of 82, which I believe is like the second highest in the whole database.
Yeah, it's
like,
very high.
On the face of it, you're like, slam dunk. Maja Lardner, Rookie of the Year candidate, you know, might score double-digit goals. Here's the thing. As cool as the college player dashboard is, that data doesn't make any adjustments for quality of opposition. There's just no strength of schedule adjustment available to it. And the variance in the quality of competition that players face in college is vast. Like Jordan Dudley, which a player you still need to maybe take with a grain of salt on the surface. At the very least, she was playing in the ACC, which is the toughest conference in the country, and her team went the distance in the tournament, which meant you played more tough teams because you went all the way to the final.
Mm-hmm.
Lardner played for Georgetown. The Big East is a very soft conference, and Georgetown didn't go very deep in the tournament, which means Lardner had a lot of opportunities to run her numbers up against soft defenses. So again, doesn't mean that she's not going to be a really good NWSL pro. It just means that the data that we have available to us isn't necessarily painting as ironclad a picture as you might think.
I'm going to borrow from college football for a second. But Curt Cignetti, the coach of Indiana, has a philosophy about sort of getting players through the portal, transfer portal, whereas his statement was always just like, I just want to know what you did. I don't care what your profile says or what your potential is. I want to know what you actually did. And by that metric, Maja Lardner is obviously a very talented, like, available player in the matches she played in.
Yeah.
Sort of like a Pietra Torden, she wasn't playing the best competition, but the numbers are extraordinary.
Yeah.
And what you did, we can't take that away from you. We just don't know how it translates. We know that there is a player who can score and create here. We just don't know whether that's something they can do at this level. This is really where the scouting has to close the gap. Like, whether you think what Lardner's game is translates up is something that Louisville will be evaluated on, but not their ability to find somebody who could just like rack up numbers. They've done that.
Yeah, and Torden's an interesting comp because you're right. I mean, playing for Princeton meant that she had a very soft schedule in front of her. Unfortunately, last year we had access to the granular Y-Scout data.
Which also looked good for her.
Yeah, we don't have access to that this year. And the granular Y-Scout data, when she played strong teams against ranked teams, was very good. And so there was a like, yeah, we don't know, but like we're kind of optimistic. We could see the potential there. I just don't have that information available about Lardner. She played 6 games. Georgetown played 6 games against ranked sides in the 2025 season out of 23 games that the club played. So how did she perform in those 6 games? I don't have that information, unfortunately. So I can't even make the like small sample caveated but optimistic argument that we were able to make about Torden last year. I just don't know.
So Maja Lardner, again, Louisville, who have at times shown a real aptitude for scouting. Maybe they hit a home run with this and we have like an actual Rookie of the Year candidate. I don't think it's that cut and dry, to Evan's point. But the exciting thing is she has put up numbers. And per this one projection model that we at ASA back, we do think that like there is a potential for a breakout player here. How much of a potential there is, that's really that's subjective.
Yeah. And we will have to wait and see on that. This one eats me up inside because I know that I could get better info or info that I feel a little bit more confident about, and I just can't get at it right now. But
given Louisville's roster construction, Lardner's not going to be like leaned on to be a primary goal scorer right out of the bat.
And that's a great point. Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's invaluable that she's entering a situation that I think really is set up for her to succeed. She's got a lot of other like creative, talented players around her. And then you have like Kayla Fisher. Like Louisville's building a very specific sort of like style and brand of play. And it's a little bit punchy in the face. And it's a little bit run you into the ground. And I kind of think that if you're Maja Lardner, I can understand the appeal of going to a place like Louisville because you will be brought along, I think, at a reasonable pace, but there will be opportunity for you to come in and score.
Yeah, and also, like you said, won't be relied upon it. I mean, if Kirsten Wright is back and if Kayla Fisher maintains the level of form that she flashed at times last year, and if Sarah Weber can maybe level up from her rookie year performance, then you got a fairly deep center forward pool, and Lardner does not have to be the dude, which is a great situation, I think, to be in if you are a high variance question marks, but with potential NWSL rookies. So there you go.
It's actually not that different than Torden's landing position in Portland last year, which is to say there will be opportunity for you.
Yeah.
But you won't be leaned on.
On the flip side, I wonder if, and this is complete speculation, I got nothing to back this argument up, but I'm spitballing here. I wonder if that the data we have is not what some of the better front offices in this league are seeing from her. Because, for example, like Jordan Dudley, I think, is an industry consensus like best player or like top 3 player in the 2025 prospect pool.
Yeah.
And she's still on the market. Why is she still on the market? Probably because a lot of teams are bidding for her services. I can't say that for sure, but that tends to be how these things go. Meanwhile, Lardner is signing for a very low payroll team with 2 months left in the offseason. So maybe, Kansas City, Washington, Gotham, Angel City, Orlando, maybe the better run teams in the league, or the teams at least with a little bit more resources put into scouting and data, didn't love the profile. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's uncertainty with this signing, and it's the kind of uncertainty that teams like Louisville need to take bets on, and that teams like Washington don't.
They don't have to. You're right.
All right, let's move on and talk San Diego, who we came here to talk today. What the hell is going on with the Wave, Evan?
I don't know, but let's quickly summarize what has been going on over the last week with the Wave. They signed Ludmila away from Chicago for anywhere between an $800,000 to $1 million transfer fee, which, wow. They signed KiKi Pickett out of free agency on a 2-year deal. And on the other side, they are letting Delphine Cascarino walk out the door. Or if they're not letting her do it, Delphine Cascarino is leaving
walking
the club
out the door. Yeah,
with a year left on her contract. So, okay. Well, if you want to understand why this is feeling like not great, is that here are the players that have left the San Diego Wave in the last 12 months. Naomi Girma, María Sánchez, Kaylin Sheridan, Hanna Lundqvist, Savannah McCaskill, and Delphine Cascarino. 6 in-ink starters had they all been on the same team. Now no longer with the club. And I should say, they have all departed the club after Jill Ellis left the club. Which, I mean, we don't really know what the state of how rotten the state of Denmark is at the moment. But from the outside, the toxic elements of leadership that you might have wanted to point to for like why things were so bad there are not here. And these 6 players all left without those people being there. Girma, bracket that because she had been wanting to leave for a year, yada, yada. But the other 5 all seem to be leaving either because they just feel like it's time, or something, in the relationship with Camille Ashton and the coaching staff broke down, or something else is going on. But not a lot of other teams have seen this amount of exodus of starting level players from their squads. I think if you wanted to go case by case, there's probably at least reasonable arguments to be made for several of these players. And if you look at like who is replacing them or who has replaced them, not all of them are bad replacements. María Sánchez got basically replaced with Didinia, and then in the coming season you mix Trinity Byars in with that. Same thing with Cascarino. Ludmila came in just a few days before. If KiKi Pickett can find her 2024 form, then maybe losing Savannah McCaskill feels a bit less painful. So there are ways to kind of positively spin some of this, but we're looking at process here, and we're looking at how these things sort of evolve in the aggregate and like what they might mean. And the one thing I didn't mention is like they also re-signed Didi Haricic for a year, and at present that means she's your number 1 in replacement of Sheridan, and Lundqvist is at the moment being replaced either by Mimi Van Zanten or Daniela Arias. So not looking great in all of these spots. So in the aggregate, if we're looking at all of this business, with Ludmila and Pickett coming in and some of the other smaller signings coming in, and with Sheridan, Lundqvist, McCaskill, and Cascarino out the door just in this offseason alone, what do you make of the way that Lauren Leichman, Camille Ashton, and Jonas Scheidevel are running things right now?
I'll set aside what I think is like potentially like a tumultuous working environment in San Diego and simply say, on a player-by-player basis, I think that San Diego are fine and have done about as well as one could reasonably do given the circumstances surrounding a lot of these departures. First off, and like this is sort of a hot take, but like we could set the Girma thing aside and say that like Girma was inevitable. Trinity Armstrong is an incredible replacement to go get. María Sánchez, I have thought was overrated and overpaid for a very long time. I think that they've probably improved in the aggregate with Dudinha and Trinity Byars. We'll see about Byars this year, but I think there's a lot of upside there. Kaylin Sheridan has been like pretty league average for 2 seasons. Didi is not league average, but Kaylin costs you a lot of money and Didi does not. So if they are able to find a number 1 goalkeeper to bring in here, potentially this was a cost-saving measure. Again, losing Kaylin Sheridan feels like losing a big part of your team identity, and fans hate that. But let's put the narrative aside and just say that, like, it is possible that San Diego will start the season with a goalkeeper that costs them less and that is as effective as Kaylin Sheridan. Hannah Lundqvist, I doubt they wanted to lose Hannah Lundqvist. She's sort of like an outlier in this conversation. It seems like she wanted to go home. I suspect San Diego would have paid her, and they really will suffer at fullback without her there. Savannah McCaskill for KiKi Pickett, that's really like for me. And maybe KiKi Pickett's even slightly better. McCaskill was like good in relation to how she had been in Angel City and like found a new position, but she's not getting any younger. Neither's Pickett for that matter, but like I kind of think that's like for like. And Ludmila was a more productive attacker than Delphine Cascarino last season. And it's not that close, actually, between the two of them. And Ludmila did that productive attacking on a team where she had literally no help. The only knock you really have for Ludmila is that she's older than Cascarino, but she was better at, 31 than Cascarino was at 29 or 28.
28, yeah.
And Cascarino wanting to go back and be closer to, her family and to be back in Europe. I just don't know what you're going to do there if you're San Diego. So, if you want to knock the Cascarino transfer, it's that they didn't get anything for it. It's not necessarily that they weren't able to find an adequate replacement or a replacement that potentially works much better for their system. So I kind of think the sky is falling is one narrative you can tell about San Diego, and there are plenty of unpleasant things people can say about Camille Ashton's business over the course of her career. But in terms of their harming of their future team, I think only Lundqvist out of that list is the clear loss for me.
Yeah, I might weight the Sheridan loss maybe more heavily than you do, and mostly just because Didi Haracic is really not an average goalkeeper. Aggressively not an average goalkeeper.
By the way, if Didi Haracic is the starter on June 1st, I'll be shocked. And that actually, I will completely revise my take on that.
Yeah.
But as of right now, they still have a goalkeeper slot available to go find someone and sign someone. And Kaylin Sheridan is going to be one of the bigger ticket keepers, Canada's number 1 in the league.
Yeah. As far as Ludmila versus Cascarino, I think without Ludmila, it would be very easy to write the narrative of Lauren Legman just wants to get cheaper. She just doesn't want to pay, top dollar, and they're stripping it down to the studs and they're rebuilding, and we won't see San Diego in the playoffs for a while. The Ludmila transfer changes that calculus, because whether it's $800,000 or it's $1 million, that's an incredible outlay for a striker or an attacker who's going to be in her age 31 season, but also a very good one who is a win now player. You go get her because you are trying to make the playoffs now. But then where I just throw up my hands with so much confusion is, so Delphine Cascarino, a global elite winger, where you want to rank her in that global elite is debatable, but she is a global elite winger. She's one of the starting wingers for France. She's going into her age 29 season. She had a year left on her contract, and there are 2 weeks left in the transfer window. If she expressed to Camille Ashton and Lauren Leichman that she wanted to return to Europe to be closer to home, okay, that reduces San Diego's leverage a little bit, because all of a sudden the other teams on the market know that this player is going to be available and has to move. But you have 2 weeks left in the window. Why can't you wait those 2 weeks? What is so important about getting her out the door now that you couldn't wait for 2 weeks to try and get a transfer fee back from her? Why is this a mutual contract termination? It is so baffling to me. There is nothing that we know right now and nothing that we know historically about how these kinds of deals work that explain it. That makes me feel like there's something else that we don't know, because could it really be that Leichman and Ashman are just that incompetent? I suppose it's possible. And whereas there may be some other big, like with Coffey or with Alyssa Thompson, where you try to make the argument for the front office's incompetence for the price that they got for those players, those arguments for incompetence are much weaker to me. But here, I just cannot find any possible rationale for why Cascarino walked for no money, especially because you just spent perhaps up to $1 million in your transfer funds to get Ludmila. Wouldn't it have been nice to rebalance your net transfer spend this offseason? And you could have done that by getting something for Cascarino. It's so odd. It's so odd.
I agree. I don't have any explanation for that. Like, it's one of the more baffling transfers we've seen. The idea of not getting anything for Delphine Cascarino. But if people can like pause for a second and think about, like, if you're a San Diego supporter, yeah, that's always going to look bad. That said, if you feel like your team is now just like irretrievably lost, I don't think that's true either. I think that in a lot of ways, like Ludmila, we talk about Cascarino as just like a game-changing dribbler, and she sure is. Ludmila was a better dribbler last year. You know, like, the only thing that you're really losing is Cascarino's chance creation. And San Diego's primary issue last year was a lot more about like getting people on the end of stuff. And Ludmila will improve you in that way. Mm-hmm. And I kind of think San Diego has enough creative thrust to sort of make up the loss of Cascarino with Ludmila. Mm-hmm. Like, Ludmila may not look good at the end of this contract, but next year, I kind of think that San Diego, maybe they're even like marginally better.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm just saying that, like, I don't think that's a crazy argument to make. I think that there's a real sky is falling narrative happening, and not getting a transfer fee is sort of the tip of that spear. But I'm just not like, I wouldn't be losing my mind right now.
If Dudinha is a hit, as it seems like she might be, and if Ludmila doesn't fall off a cliff, an age-related cliff dive, and if Trinity Byars lives up to even 80% of her potential, and that's your forward line,
like, you're doing great.
Like, I feel like you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, you're not doing bad. And you still have Kimi Ascanio bouncing around.
Barcenas,
yeah. Like, you have a lot, like, San Diego has a lot of weapons. Mm-hmm. And a lot of weapons that are like coming into the sort of the right timeline. Now, Delphine was not a part of the timeline to win a title, and neither is Ludmila. Unless you think that your strategy to winning a title is just get into the dance and see what happens, a la Gotham last year. But like, you can do a lot worse than going and getting like your talismanic striker with a bunch of young players moving in the right direction. And like, San Diego, for all of the chaos in the Ellis and post-Ellis era, and for all the sort of the swirling nonsense that is there, I basically see a team that is like doing the best they can with the set of circumstances, and like game planning appropriately. So it's like, I feel like that's an outsider take, but I just kind of don't like. I thought I'd be so much more concerned about the state of San Diego, but the Ludmila signing is a really good one.
Yeah, and don't get it twisted. This organization is still in concert with the NWSL trying to defend themselves in court right now that
that's all a mess.
That they did not have a duty of care to its employees in the abuse scandals that swirled around the team a couple of years ago. So, there is, despite new ownership and despite a new head of a front office, that's still going on. And the Wave are actively participating in that. So it's still kind of a fucked organization in a lot of ways. But in terms of in terms of how they're handling their on-field business, you're right. At worst, this is a team, as presently constructed, probably nibbling around the edges of the playoff race. We didn't mention Quincy McMahon, who no longer plays for the team. That also doesn't look good for Johanna Lundqvist replacement, but that's the one spot that just really screams potential disaster. I don't love KiKi Pickett. I think that the half season where she was good in Bay really stands out in her resume as the exception rather than the rule. I don't love Didi Haracic. I think there is a lot less certainty or a lot less comfort between the sticks now if you don't go out and sign somebody else. What is your remaining transfer budget if you didn't get a fee for Cascarino and you just spent almost $1 million on Ludmila? Like, do you have the money to spend to go out and get a couple more pieces? A lot of questions still around San Diego, but if this is just not the final nail in the coffin of their 2026 season before it's even begun.
I kind of wonder if they didn't make a very real play for Kat Macario and not get her.
Maybe.
And Ludmila is the backup to that.
I mean, it's possible. There's so many rumors swirling around Macario right now because her contract is up in June. And she is from Southern California, so
yeah, it kind of feels like maybe they made a play for Macario and it didn't work out, and they just had that money to go spend, and they went and got the best player they could, and Ludmila is a good answer for that.
Yeah, but
I kind of think, I don't think San Diego's done per se, and they have really interesting pieces. It's really only the Lundqvist one that sticks out to me as like, you really can't. That's a loss that like you can't really survive or immediately replace.
Yeah.
But again, if the position you need to fill is fullback, like you're doing better squad construction than the position being something like, I don't know, your primary attacking node.
Mm-hmm.
Like fullback is easier to replace. We talked about this with this sort of Coffee thing, why you keep Wilson and don't keep Coffee. Like it is just easier to replicate or create another central midfielder, and it is easier to replicate and create another fullback.
Yeah.
It is not easy to go and immediately replace like your talismanic forward. And San Diego kind of did that with a player who was better last year.
Mm-hmm.
On a worse team.
You're absolutely right. So we'll see what the next 2 months kind of brings for San Diego.
But you know what I love about San Diego, Evan? Every year they have made it very hard for us to assess how good they are.
Sure.
For very different reasons.
I don't think either of us are going to pick them that low as we did last year, though.
No. But I mean, just like they are not making it easy to sort of assess how they are. But right now, I'm surprised at myself for not being like particularly down on them.
They are tied with Angel City for having the youngest median squad age in the league at the moment, 23 and a half. So they are going younger, even with the addition of a player like Ludmila. So, yeah, we'll see what comes of it. Any other bits and bobs, any other signings that you want to highlight from the last week? A lot of roster fleshing out. Yeah.
A lot of college signings. We should probably take a look at Chicago coming up. I still feel like there's a couple things to discuss with them, but I feel like for right now, we're in a pretty good place. You want to take us out?
I sure do. Thank you so much for listening, as always. If you want to listen to the show ad-free, both video and audio versions, click the link in the show notes to subscribe to our Patreon, where a price of as low as $6 a month gets you the show ad-free plus 4 exclusive bonus episodes every single month and a lot of other cool bonus goodies. Follow us on social media at XOwnGoals. That's the letter XOwnGoals. We're really pushing YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at the moment, doing a lot of cool video content there. If you believe we've made an own goal, email us at xog@xowngoals.com. That's the letter XOG at the letter xowngoals.com. We will be back on Thursday on Patreon, back with you next week on Main Feed.
Bye.